A little bit about myself. I'm an engineer by education because I was a crappy engineer. I think that's why I chose this route. Jokes apart, I started my career at IBM as an engineer. But what I loved or fell in love with was the fact why I'm building what I'm building. And I say I wasn't a great engineer, I don't think I was. So I was the one who was really bothering the clients about, hey, why do you need this particular report to be generated? So I think my boss got annoyed with me and sent me to the client, although my first client was BMW, so I spent some time in Germany doing a whole business analysis piece. Like product management is a fancy term that recently started thanks to Steve Jobs, but back then there was business analysis, so that was my title back then. I spent some time at IBM and fell in love with this intersection between technology, management, and solving business problems. And I said, okay, to actually expand my skill set, what do I do? I found this course at Carnegie Mellon around information systems management, which pretty much summarized what I was looking for. So I ended up here, had a blast learning from great professors, and the first job out of it, because I worked for a very, very big company, IBM, I wanted to work for a small company. So I chose to work at a very small consulting firm, which was focused on technology strategy back then. But lo and behold, I joined them and we got acquired by PricewaterhouseCoopers, the largest consulting firm on the planet. Spent some time there, but that's where the true product management started. For me personally, I worked on the e-commerce strategy for Southwest.com, the Mileage Plus program for United Airlines, working on redesigning TurboTax. Like if you guys have ever worked on it before, and say maybe 2-3 years back, the UI actually, the whole experience was very user-centric. I worked on that as well. And then I got my chance in the Valley when a small company, Cosmix, was just acquired by Walmart. It became Walmart Labs, and one of the key VPs pulled me in to actually start Walmart Labs at Walmart. So I was part of the original 35-person team, and now it's I think thousands. Launched a program called Get on the Shelf, which was a crowdsourced initiative for Walmart to help vendors sell at Walmart. Also worked on Savings Capture, an app which was highly successful. Also worked on a lot of omni-channel retail strategies where it's like pick up from store, you shop something online and we geolocation, like we trigger your geolocation so that you can pick up stuff at store. After that, moved to Visa. The CEO there was starting their own innovation strategic partnerships group focusing on merchants. So that's why I did some work there. Then I got bored of the big companies, and then I was like, I wanted a startup. So that's where I'm at right now. I worked in a startup last year in the blockchain space, which was founded by my first boss at Walmart. Right now I work in a crowdsourcing beauty company called Volition Beauty. The idea is instead of just putting marketing behind it, how do you flip the model and use crowdsourcing to create the next beauty breakthrough? So I take care of the e-commerce business as well as the underlying platform that reduces our time to market. So a little bit about myself, but now we're going to talk about growth. But before I talk about growth, I want to talk about what growth is not. So I don't know if you guys have heard about the fake accounts at Wells Fargo, or the fact a bio startup did some funny business to get their numbers high, cut corners. So I think that's one thing I just want to make clear, very, very, very clear right on the upfront. Is growth is not looking at your specific metric and hacking the system. I think growth hack became a cool term a couple of years back and everybody wanted to be a growth hacker, but that also meant let's just optimize for the metric I'm being paid for and then mess around with everything else. And you get into serious trouble when you do that, so we're not going to talk about that today. But a lot of folks will be like, but why are we talking about growth? Like, isn't that a marketing thing? Because that's what growth marketers do. Also the fact that, well, I'm a PM, there's a specific growth PM. Again, there's a whole emergence of growth PMs out there. But my perspective, based on my experience, is it should not be a marketing thing or a sales thing or the growth PM does this, he sits with data scientists and engineers to actually run experiments. It should be every PM's thing. Because the main reason being, as a PM, irrespective of where you sit, if you're a startup, you'll end up owning a lot of scope. But if you're at a big company like Walmart, you might just have, hey, you work on checkout second page around payments, or you work on user-generated data. However, I think it's extremely important for PMs to have the growth mindset and understand what the company is trying to grow or optimize for, And PMs sit at a very unique intersection of user experience, and they get to work with extremely smart coworkers in the marketing space, or data scientists, or engineers. However, they're very close to the user experience. So I think your job as a product manager becomes going through all these, understanding all the different goals or competing goals at times that are happening in the company, but we'll bring them together with a prism that I call around user experience and truly create user value. Because the truth is, you can't really grow if your product sucks, or if users don't really like what you're trying to sell them. So we talk a lot about user journey. Are people aware with this? Like, it's an overused funnel. So, okay, good. So I don't have to talk much about it. But it's something I like to talk about. Like, I just set it out there as context. I do think it's a little overrated. But the idea is just having the fact that, okay, there's this whole universe of users out there whom you want to target. Out of that universe, you have specific target customers. So for a beauty company, I can say, okay, I'm targeting women in a certain age group, in a certain demographic, looking at their income, like, how much they can spend. And this becomes like almost like on top of the funnel. Actually, I have an example around that. So what that means for a beauty customer, awareness just means if you're a new company that they've just discovered the brand, and maybe they'll visit my site. Again, it depends on where you are with the brand, whether the brand is known or not. Maybe I just want to engage with you in some shape or form. So that's how you slowly go down the funnel. Then you can talk about how like, now that I'm interested, maybe I can get her to start interacting with the brand, or maybe like try getting her interest to know more about the products that I'm trying to sell. And eventually the intent becomes stronger the moment she adds it to the cart. She might or might not buy at that point also, but then there'll be a lot of drop-offs along the funnel. That's why it gets steeper and steeper. But then potentially she'll buy at some point, and hopefully if she likes the overall experience, she's going to come back and purchase again. It can be a little different for SaaS, where SaaS is like known for freemium models, where your awareness or activation is basically just getting them to sign up for trial. From trial, how you make them a paying customer, which is on a still a trial, but it's like a 6-month trial. But from there, how do you get them into a loyalist that keeps coming back again and again? However, I think what I like the fact is the funnel is still broken because it doesn't talk about the quality of growth. So if I just have to talk about acquisition, we all have seen these clickbaity articles, like, watch these 3 things or 10 things that will blow your mind. Number 5 is the best, the crap like that. So you'll get those clicks. However, is that quality traffic? So like whosoever is doing the acquisition piece, the PM, it's like his numbers are great, but in the end, nobody's actually buying. Or you might actually end up buying stuff, but then the product is so shitty, nobody comes back. So ideally, you actually have this wheel where you are creating value at each step that the consumer keeps coming back and back. And then that's where, and once I refer, I become a loyalist, you can actually invest back again in the overall funnel, or overall framework, and that's how you roll. So where do you start? I think a few things to consider is brand maturity. Usually I won't even talk about brand maturity, but this is the Silicon Valley. Everybody's working at a startup. So I think brand maturity is very important on where you focus on. If your brand is known, maybe you can talk about growth down the funnel, right? Maybe a lot of people have been first-time purchasers, or they've used the product at least once, but they aren't repeating it. Then you can go down the funnel and focus focus all your efforts around retention or getting them to even buy a second time. However, if it's a startup, maybe it's fine to actually run sweepstakes, because at that point you're just hoping they'll have some interaction with you at some point. So it's okay to really double down on the top of the funnel. So understanding your brand maturity is extremely critical when you talk about where to start. However, you cannot grow a shitty product. So whatever I say here, if your product sucks, that's a problem. No growth tactics can ever help you. So you have to understand, is your product, if you're working at a startup, working at a big company, truly honestly ask yourself, does it truly create value for someone who I believe is a real human being existing somewhere? If the answer is no, don't focus on growth, challenge the product, its hypotheses and the business model instead, right? Don't worry about growth at all. The second piece is also about the product market fit. Like, of course, this is lean startup, everybody's talked about it. But also understanding before you put your time and energy into what growth tactics should I put in, truly understand, have you even found the product market fit? If that's not the case, if you haven't found product market fit, maybe look at who's your target customer. Maybe you're not focusing on the right customer. If you have the right customer, maybe the features aren't really consistent. So again, don't worry about hiring a growth marketer and doing all these fancy things if you haven't found your product market fit. So the idea is you don't have a shitty product, you have some product market fit, you've identified certain channels or target customers whom you believe are going to use, and you truly believe there is value that you can create for them, then we can start talking about growth at all. Alright, so before you start anything, this is the definition of frustration, when you're causing hurdles for something I'm trying to do. Rule 1, before growth, or I have personally seen in my personal experience, just by doing this has done wonders for growth. It is highly underestimated. People think, I'm gonna just build the next feature that TechCrunch's gonna talk about. No, have you truly used your product once? And go through all the user experiences, like do a design audit with your designers. Your mind will be blown how many times user onboarding is broken. It's one of those things nobody wants to take, like yeah, they're just signing up. How much are you asking them to give you before you start spamming them with your marketing emails? So truly think about, do you really need first name and last name? Like really go to that depth of, are you causing unnecessarily friction for your user? Even checkout, again, checkout again is more complicated, but very basic things that you should be paying attention to. Do a design audit. More than anything, even design audit is very fancy. Go ahead and use your product, become the power user. And you'll be amazed on random error messages that come up that mean nothing. Like they'll be like error 001. Like what the hell does that even mean? So really focus on removing hurdles for the user. That will take you a long way, believe it or not. But again, this is second thing that I found extremely useful. PMs run away from customer service. Nobody wants to deal with customer service issues, but if you can actually bite the bullet and work with customer service to truly understand, half of the time it's user error, I know that. But if you can spend the time with customer service to understand, okay, what is going on, what are the top things that you guys are hearing, you'll find gold nuggets in it. And a lot of our features have been driven by customer service issues that nobody knew existed because nobody wanted to talk to customer service agents. But they have that and open the door for them to be like, okay, if you have a question, if you have a customer on the line, just super confused, ask me. Or just start creating a document and just send them over to me for me to look at. Because half of the time, whenever a customer service agent gets an angry customer, everything is priority 1, right? So you have to use your own analysis to understand, okay, how much is the impact of this particular use case? For example, during Black Friday last year, we found that all of a sudden I am in Peru traveling, and then I get this multiple calls that promo codes are not working, which is really, really bad for DTC brands. So at 3 a.m. I'm like, okay, are they really not working? But then when I delved down into it, it was like one promo code for Amazon Pay on Firefox is not working, right? But then you do your analysis, do I have to really wake up my entire team on this? Do your analysis and you'll find out, okay, well, less than 5% of my users are using Firefox. Amazon Pay is even less than that. Amazon Pay is overall, if I look at all my purchase data, Amazon Pay is less than 0.5%. So I do really think it's urgent or not, right? So ask yourself those questions, but again, find customer pain points qualitatively, quantitatively, wherever you can, and that will start, I call it stop the bleeding. Because you have this perfect funnel that everybody will keep showing you in all your growth meetings or marketing meetings. but then it's actually extremely leaky. So when you start plugging that up, that's where you'll see, okay, now we think we have some product value. We know who our user is, but let's go ahead and see if we've actually truly removed hurdles for that. And that's when you'll start seeing some traction. One tool I highly recommend for this is Full Story. I've always started a plan, so where there's no budget for any tool. So Full Story has a great free trial tool as well. So this actually is a great tool to understand user frustration. They'll have statistics on dead clicks, error clicks, or cursor, where if somebody's like just going like rage clicking, if someone's like why is this not happening? And I actually thought it would never happen on my side. I'm like, come on, like we don't have these issues. But actually, it was one of the most useful tools I've ever used. It's almost addicting because what they can do, they start recording the user session. So I would actually, so the user does not know, but I can watch my user when she's on the site. And then at times I'd be like, come on, just hit purchase, at this point, you can do this. But then I realized that, then she's going back. Then she is looking at ingredients again, and then she goes quiet. Then I know she's opening another tab. So you can have very good insights outside just error clicks, also from Full Story. They have heat maps. They will tell you when they've opened other tabs, which is very, very useful, mainly because I actually could understand what information I'm not giving her. So one of the things that we found was we had good traffic, dependent on the segment. We had very high engagement on the site. What that means is the time spent was pretty high for a new brand. The number of pages viewed is very high as well. And then the time spent on each page is extremely high too. But then she was still not convert. So that's the challenge of a new brand. Like, why is she still not converting? And I would keep seeing a lot of hotspots around heat maps, around ingredient, and then she'll keep opening other tabs. So again, the hypothesis you can take from that is she needs to know more about ingredients. From a product or service offering, I'm not giving her enough information for her to open her wallet and pay us. So those are the kind of insights you can actually get from Full Story. I highly recommend it, and they have a great free trial. So I'm big on free trials. So that's something I've done. Now, metrics. Depending on whom you talk to, you'll get different metrics. Somebody would be like, oh, conversion is king. Somebody else would be like, time to value. In SaaS companies, time to value, like how long did you take to convert the user is king. And everybody starts talking about those specific metrics. However, it's important for you to understand where you are in your brand maturity, and this is a conversation I would ask you to challenge your leadership. Coming from the top, they really need to understand at a specific point in time, at a specific brand maturity level, what is the North Star metric that they're trying to optimize for. It could be like in more mature companies, you could have something like for Airbnb, you could be pretty much like number of bookings done per month, because it's taking care of pretty much how many people are hosts, how many people are renters, and then that brings them together. But it's not that cut and dry, simple for a smaller company. You might focus on, as I said, if you're new, it's okay. You just want people to get into the door and just get something. So for example, conversion rate. Conversion rate is very tricky. It's a lagging indicator. But then I can say, oh, I did these things and my conversion rate is up to 10%. Well, guess what? I ran a huge sale with 60% off. So my conversion rate went very high, but how much money did I actually make? Pretty much nothing, right? So there are always these traps with any metric that you can pick, that you have to ask yourself, is it truly the right metric that I'm hoping for? So I would say in this case, conversion rate is not a good metric. A good metric, even for a small brand, would be average order value, or number of orders, conversion rate along with average order value would be a good North Star metric to look at. One more thing you could think about, if people are just thinking, oh, how many people are on the platform? So for example, Facebook, you could say, oh, I'm going to remove the profile picture upload because that would help people create more accounts at Facebook. And then I'm just gonna say that, hey, my number of active users, MAUs, DAU is very high. However, if I were working at Facebook, I wouldn't do that. Mainly because if I'm removing the profile picture, Facebook's mission is to bring the world closer together. If they're doing that, potentially knowing friends, like a profile picture actually has a very, very important role to play, whether or not I even friend you. How do I know it's Vaini Singh or some other creep, right? So I think a picture is a good indicator. So those are the questions you should ask yourself with which metric you're picking, and does it truly align with your actual company's goals and mission or not? And as I said, like a holiday metric might be very different from when a brand is starting. So pick the right metrics, and then what are the different growth levers you could put? So this is a very generic, I would say, come up with different levers and say how it can translate into growth. So this is just an example of a DTC brand, where I could say, and when I say traffic to the site, I think for a newer brand it's important. So you're saying, okay, I need to know traffic because I need to get more traffic to the site, because right now awareness is important for the brand. Then potentially you could look at customer interactions. If people are just like getting on and bouncing, like you have to look at bounce rate, it's not good enough. That means your awareness metric was actually 0 if people are just bouncing off. So you can say potentially, okay, they should come to the site, they should have some interaction with the site as well. What that means is, did they give me their email because I gave them a good enough incentive to do that? Or if you have chat on the site, did they ask me questions to actually talk about that? A lot of SaaS companies have the whole chat phase. It's a little annoying at times. We just come and they're like, hello, can I help you? So that's something you could do. Third, it's mostly for e-commerce and DTC's product assortment. But if it was a bigger retailer like Amazon or Walmart, you would also think about category assortment too. Like, because the probability is high for someone to buy your products if they're finding the products on your site to begin with. So for retailers, marketplaces, category expansion becomes huge. But I'm talking about a DTC brand, that's why I don't have a category expansion here. Product assortment. And then you can start talking about conversion rate, how many people who came to your site actually bought, and average order value as well, and then repeat rate. So in this case, I've identified at some point for our brand when these growth levers are actually important. And it's a little complicated, mainly because when I put repeat rate, it actually starts talking about lifetime value a little bit. You can further complicate the equation by saying, hey, what is the cost of acquiring a customer? Like, or what is the return on ad spend? But for sake of simplicity, I'm just saying that identify the key growth levers that where your company is at right now. And then actually write an equation that you can agree with your marketing team or your sales team, whosoever you work at, and say that, okay, for this quarter, we are going to focus on getting a lot of traffic on the site. We are going to focus on optimizing conversion rate, but merchandising team, you guys need to focus on product assortment, and let's see if we can actually raise these levers, and whether or not we see an impact on our overall growth, which could be lifetime value, or it could be overall revenue generated by all these things. But then come up with something, and it will never be perfect to begin with, but you have a fair, I would say, common ground with the entire team or the larger company to talk through that, okay, what are we focusing on to begin with? And this is also very important so that you don't do cheap tricks to actually optimize. If you are responsible for, say, A, you're not just getting our joke is Snapchat traffic sucks. So you're not getting a bunch of cheap traffic from Snapchat that bounces within less than a second. So, but those things are fair, and then you are actually all in it together. So come up with something that you all can react to and agree on. However, what's going to happen, you'll come up with this, I don't know if, I'm sure engineers have the same pain in marketing, but literally, if you're a product manager and you've even mentioned the word growth, people would just inundate you with hey, everybody's doing subscriptions, why are we not doing subscriptions? Maybe I heard about sampling. Sampling is huge in the beauty market, let's do that. Or it's going to be how about text? I heard I read this paper, millennials are using text, so let's just do text-based reordering. So again, you always have, that's the life of a product manager, you always have, everybody's an expert, and they think that you'll never have enough engineers, enough designers to do your job. But it will be your job to come up with what to do, and how to build, and what to prioritize. So this is the framework, and we can take a few examples that we talk about that I recommend. So let's take an example of subscriptions. Somebody comes to you, and it's a real life example where somebody's like, okay, the growth rate for subscription-based services is around 30%, the repeat rate, sorry, the retention rate. So when you think about the Warby Parkers of the world or Dollar Shave Clubs, their retention rate is pretty high because they're a subscription service, right? However, a normal DTC brand's retention rate or repeat rate is around 3 to 5%. We are maybe at 12%. We need to get to the subscription level. So easy peasy, let's just do subscription. So that is a solution somebody will approach you with. So the truth is you always have solutions. What you should do when somebody comes up with a solution, and I always talk about coming up with my treatment plan. But let's talk about what was the symptom. Like, if you think about from medical, I always ask about what was the symptom that you observed, what is the diagnosis, and what's the proposed treatment plan. But if non-medical term would be like, okay, let's forget subscription or not. But what's the observation? The observation is our repeat rate or retention rate is around 11%. Industry is 5%, but we want to do even better and match subscription models, which is around 30%. So our observation is our subscription rate isn't enough, or retention rate isn't enough. The hypothesis that now that the person is making, we are not providing subscription services or easily to our customer. That's why we should just go ahead and create a subscription service so that our retention rate increases. So that's their hypothesis, that for us to increase our lifetime value, if that's the growth market I'm working with, I need to increase my repeat rates, and subscription sounds like a good solution. So if you look at just the hypotheses, you would actually stop right there. You'd be like, okay, so you just want to increase your retention rate. You don't think it's good enough, and one of the solutions that you're proposing is subscription. They're like, no, not one. This is the one. I've thought about it, right? They're like, okay, but is that truly one? So then I challenge you, if you've confirmed the observation and it's truly a problem, ask yourself, is that the best solution or not? So in our case, we can do subscriptions, sure. We have to do some analysis to understand whether subscriptions make sense for a new brand or not. B, if the truth is, actually now go ahead and look at the data to understand, A, what are the characteristics that differentiate a repeat customer from a customer who's once and done. Truly try to understand. And if that's the case, are we just not like telling them, reminding them, or is it basically a product sucks so bad they just don't want to have anything to do with us? Actually, now go dig deeper. Look at what are your return rates, because now we are going beyond once they've bought one product from you. Was their experience on the site bad? Is the fact that they are not coming back because they tried to return, they had a question about the product or service and nobody responded to them? Or is it basically your product sucks? Like they bought something and they just don't want to have anything to do with you? I think once you talk about that and you eliminate all those potential hypotheses, you can come to the conclusion, we came to the conclusion, actually, people love our products. Our return rate is very high, but they are just not buying enough again. Well, before going to subscriptions, I challenge the team to think about, are you even reminding them that we exist? So what we noticed, we didn't have enough emails, or we had like fake emails or emails that were bouncing, that we didn't have a good, consistent post-purchase drip or handling of our customers. What that means, you bought us, but we kind of said thank you and forgot all about you. But then before investing heavily in a subscription feature as per, let's just test out whether or not people want to come back to us. So again, instead of leading with a solution, you should look at what are the different solutions you can come up with, and then try to come up with the impact, estimate impact for each and every of the solution. In this case, we kind of did an impact for all of the different solutions that were there, and then go ahead and prioritize. Prioritize based on what your engineers tell you, what designers tell you, if there's any user research that has been done, and then go ahead and test and learn. We did the email stuff, and the other thing that we do, this is where you can get a little creative with your solutions too. was like, once we did the email, everything was fine, our retention rates increased, our repeat purchases increased, but then, still the issue, like, we have to do subscription. So what do? Instead of spending a couple months because it's complicated on my current tech stack, you can just put a button out there. At least my joke was, okay, we don't have subscription, and I'm not sold on the fact there's no significant data whether or not to do it. Can we just put a button out there and ask and see whether anybody clicks on it or not? If they click it, because a typical beauty product takes around 90 days for a refill, I joked, I'm like, well, we have 90 days to build the future if somebody asks for a subscription, right? But the truth is, nobody clicked. So, or very, very few people clicked. So you can come up with creative solutions without diminishing the value or experience of the user to actually prove or disprove the hypothesis. Like this solution isn't the most sophisticated, but it still works if you're trying to truly understand whether or not it works or not. But I also have this thing with A/B testing. I think A/B testing is more of a curse right now, because literally anyone you talk to, they'll be like, you can do A/B testing, right? Just do A/B testing. But I think what A/B testing has become right now, people use it as a crutch to be lazy, to not do the analysis, and to not look into data, and just put everything on the test. Like, just do an A/B test, let's see what people are doing. But I always push back, and my thing is like, no, think a little bit more about it. Like, rather than having the user pick it always, every single time, I'm not against it, but I also feel it's lazy analysis and lazy quant analysis as well that leads people to always do A/B testing. But that's the whole idea around what's the observation, what's the hypothesis, what are the solution. Then you look at the estimate impact, then you prioritize and go ahead and test and learn.